Sit down quick.
How you think I'm making?
The brothers are here.
Doing this too?
Nah. Sit down quick, Joe.
Joe Frazier. He was more than a champion. He was the working man's fighter, tough, relentless, and full of heart. When Joe Frazier stepped into the ring, he didn't dance, he hunted. He didn't talk, he punished, and he didn't quit, ever. But behind the smile, behind the humility, there was fire. There were rivalries that scarred his soul. There were boxers who pushed his patience, tested his pride, and made him feel hate in a sport he loved. Today, we look inside the heart of Smokin Joe Frazier to uncover the truth behind the 6 boxers he hated the most. Some were rivals, some were enemies, and some broke his heart forever.
6. Jerry Quarry. Starting at number 6 is Jerry Quarry, the California heavyweight whose media darling status and promotional advantages infuriated Frazier throughout their parallel careers in boxing's most competitive era. Quarry represented everything Frazier despised about boxing politics favoring certain fighters over others, based on factors beyond ring accomplishments. The resentment began when Quarry received magazine covers, television specials, and promotional campaigns that Frazier felt should have been distributed based on actual boxing achievements rather than marketability and ethnic appeal to certain demographic groups. Frazier watched Quarry get opportunities and recognition that seemed unearned compared to his own grinding journey through boxing's toughest neighborhoods and most dangerous opponents. The disparity in treatment reflected broader issues about which fighters deserved championship opportunities. Their encounters became personal because Frazier viewed Quarry as someone who had received unearned advantages, while he had scratched and clawed for every opportunity in a sport that rarely rewarded pure heart and determination over political connections. Training camp preparation took on added significance as Frazier focused on proving that authentic toughness would always defeat manufactured hype when tested under championship pressure and genuine adversity. The rivalry represented broader cultural tensions about which type of fighter deserved respect from boxing fans who appreciated different aspects of heavyweight competition and athletic achievement. 5. Floyd Patterson. At number 5 is Floyd Patterson, the former heavyweight champion whose intellectual approach to boxing and psychological complexities irritated Frazier's straightforward mentality and working-class sensibilities about what made a real fighter in heavyweight boxing's unforgiving environment. Patterson represented everything Frazier couldn't understand about modern boxing with his introspective personality, analytical fighting style, and tendency to overthink situations that required instinctive reactions and warrior mentality rather than intellectual analysis. The generational conflict intensified when Patterson started giving interviews about boxing psychology and mental preparation techniques that seemed foreign to Frazier's blue-collar approach of simply outworking opponents through superior conditioning and relentless pressure. Frazier viewed Patterson's comeback attempts and continued involvement in heavyweight politics as attention-seeking behavior from someone whose best years were finished but who couldn't accept diminished relevance in boxing's evolving landscape. Their philosophical differences about fighting reflected broader cultural gaps between intellectual approaches to athletics and traditional working-class values that emphasized toughness, sacrifice, and straightforward competition without psychological complications. Patterson's association with civil rights causes and political activism also created tension with Frazier's more conservative social views and focus on boxing achievement rather than broader cultural movements and social justice issues. Frazier respected Patterson's past accomplishments, but resented his continued presence in heavyweight discussions when younger, hungrier fighters deserved attention and opportunities that were being monopolized by aging former champions seeking relevance.
At number 4, George Foreman. Joe Frazier was never afraid of anyone until he met George Foreman. In 1973, Foreman was young, raw, and devastating. Frazier walked into the ring as the undefeated heavyweight champion. But what happened next shocked the world. In just 2 rounds, Foreman knocked Frazier down 6 times. Every time Joe rose, George sent him crashing again. It wasn't just a defeat, it was humiliation. The words, "Down goes Frazier," echoed forever. What hurt Joe wasn't losing, it was being manhandled, bullied, beaten by a man he underestimated. Foreman later said, "Joe never forgave me. Even when I turned preacher, he still looked at me with fire in his eyes." They met again in 1976. Frazier was older but proud, and again, Foreman stopped him. This time, Joe accepted the loss, but the hate lingered. For years, he refused to speak to George. In later life, they reconciled, but when asked about Foreman, Frazier would still say, "He beat me, yeah, but I never bowed to him."
At number 3 is Larry Holmes, the jab specialist whose systematic dismantling of Frazier's legacy through superior technique and youthful advantages created lasting bitterness between two Philadelphia fighters who should have supported each other against outside competition. Holmes represented the new generation of heavyweights who possessed superior boxing skills and physical conditioning compared to Frazier's era, making their encounters seem one-sided demonstrations of athletic evolution rather than competitive fights. The geographic connection made their rivalry particularly painful for Frazier, as Holmes claimed Philadelphia's heavyweight throne while showing little respect for the man who had established the city's boxing reputation through international championship success. Frazier watched Holmes receive recognition and financial rewards that exceeded his own peak earnings, despite inferior heart and determination compared to the sacrifice required during boxing's more demanding previous era. Their professional encounters became exercises in frustration, as Holmes used superior reach and technical ability to neutralize Frazier's pressure fighting while making his aggressive style appear outdated and ineffective against modern boxing techniques. The personal animosity deepened when Holmes started claiming Philadelphia's boxing legacy as his own achievement, rather than acknowledging his debt to Frazier's pioneering role in establishing the city's heavyweight tradition and international boxing reputation.
Number 2, Jimmy Ellis. Before fame, Joe Frazier and Jimmy Ellis were friends. They trained together, ate together, shared dreams of becoming champions. But in boxing, friendship rarely survives the spotlight. In 1970, they met for the undisputed heavyweight championship. It was supposed to be respectful, but Ellis's camp began trash-talking Joe's style, calling him predictable. Frazier took it personally. He saw it as betrayal from a friend. When they finally fought, Frazier destroyed Ellis in 4 rounds. He didn't celebrate. He just glared at Ellis's corner and said he should have remembered who helped him eat. Years later, Frazier admitted the fight broke his heart. "Jimmy was a friend, but once you talk, you ain't my friend no more."
1. Muhammad Ali. And finally, at number 1, the most painful and complex hatred of all, Muhammad Ali, the man whose cruel psychological warfare and systematic humiliation campaign destroyed Frazier's dignity while stealing credit for achievements that belonged to both men equally. The relationship began with mutual respect as two undefeated champions prepared for boxing history's most anticipated heavyweight encounter. But Ali's pre-fight tactics revealed a cruel streak that went far beyond acceptable promotional behavior. Ali's verbal attacks weren't just competitive trash talk, they were calculated assaults on Frazier's character, intelligence, and racial identity designed to create psychological damage that extended far beyond their professional rivalry. The Uncle Tom accusations wounded Frazier deeper than any physical punishment because they attacked his integrity and suggested betrayal of his own people for supporting American values and military service during controversial political times. Frazier's victory in their first encounter should have established him as heavyweight boxing's authentic champion, but Ali's media relationships and promotional genius allowed him to minimize the defeat while maintaining his status as boxing's most significant figure. The psychological warfare continued throughout their trilogy as Ali used every platform to humiliate someone who had proven superior in honest competition but lacked the verbal skills and media savvy to defend himself effectively. From working-class pride to championship heartbreak, Joe Frazier's hatred ran as deep as his left hook. Which betrayal cut deepest? Subscribe for more Smokin Joe secrets.
Joe Frazier never played games. He didn't dance, he didn't boast, he fought. But behind the warrior was a man who carried scars, not from punches, but from words, betrayal, and pride. Muhammad Ali, the brother who became his greatest rival. George Foreman, the giant who humbled his spirit. Jimmy Ellis, the friend who turned enemy. Larry Holmes, the champion who disrespected him. Floyd Patterson, the old guard who doubted him. Buster Mathis, the rival who started it all. Each of them left a mark on Smokin Joe's soul. He fought for respect, not fame. For honor, not headlines. And though hate burned in him, it came from love. Love for the sport, love for dignity, love for truth. When Joe Frazier died in 2011, the boxing world mourned. Even Muhammad Ali called him his greatest opponent and brother in battle. In the end, the hate faded, but the fire never did. Because Joe Frazier wasn't just another champion. He was a man who proved that even when the world counts you out, you can still rise again and again and make them remember your name.